Babashuaib, the correctional officer, born in Accra, Ghana, a Quranic researcher and a critical thinker based on religion, who does online lectures based on the guidance of the Quran on platforms such as Facebook, YouTube and TikTok since 2018. In Finland, and 13 years, QBE, in Classical Arabic and MSA in Quranic Arabic. The author of the Refer to the Quran, which helps every novice to understand the steps towards understanding the Great Quran and the guidance of God in it. Babashuaib, the correctional officer, born in Accra, Ghana, a Quranic researcher and a critical thinker based on religion, who does online lectures based on the guidance of the Quran on platforms such as Facebook, YouTube and TikTok since 2018. In Finland, and 13 years, QBE, in Classical Arabic and MSA in Quranic Arabic. The author of the Refer to the Quran, which helps every novice to understand the steps towards understanding the Great Quran and the guidance of God in it. Babashuaib, the correctional officer, born in Accra, Ghana, a Quranic researcher and a critical thinker based on religion, who does online lectures.
So her money is her money, our money is her money.
No, your money is your money, her money is her money. No joint account, none of this nonsense.
Yeah.
You don't know her bank account number or her PIN number for the ATM. She doesn't know how much you earn, how much you save, nothing.
I can't know anything about her finances.
Yes, you shouldn't. Because then you'll be looking for a sugar mummy.
Mr. Rashida says, what time will you go to bed? Don't worry, we will find that time. I'll find that time to go to bed. Don't worry. So this is my way I invite to Allah by perception, I and whoever follows me, and glory be to Allah, for I am not among the idolaters. So pay attention. I said I invite to Allah by perception. Insight, perception. Right? Okay. It is very essential when dealing with the words of God. You must use perception. It is very essential to deciphering a lot of concepts that you don't understand. And when we say perception, we are talking about the representation of what is perceived, basic components in the formation of a concept, a way of conceiving something, the process of perceiving, knowledge gained by perceiving, becoming aware of something via the senses. So this is why using rationality, using logic is essential in understanding God. You can't just be like a sheep and then you say, because this scholar says that, or yeah, salam to you, brother Talal Sobi. Yeah, greetings, bro. You can't just say because a particular scholar says this and then you just go with the flow because you deem the person as a scholar. They are humans like you. They can make mistakes, right? To err is human. So what you need to understand is you must apply perception when it comes to reasoning along with the words of God, right? So that is why he says, this is my way I invite to Allah by perception. And you can find the verse in Quran chapter 12, verse 108. Quran chapter 12, verse 108. This is what the messenger was asked to tell the people. That's how he was asked to invite the people. This is my way I invite to God by perception. I and whoever follows me, and glory be to Allah, that is God, for I am not among the idol worshippers, that is the idolaters. You know the idolaters, they are the ones who divide their religion, they become sects, they follow their idols, they follow the legislations of their idols. It takes somebody else other than God to decide certain things in their faith, in their deen for them. And that is a problem, right? So salam to all those who are doing alms and those who are joining. If I didn't answer to your greetings, I kindly apologize. I have to focus on the program for now. Yes, So the question, yeah, Mohammed Lamin Diawara, salam. The question is pertaining to Quran chapter 3 verse 7. However, I'll put it on the screen, but only those on Facebook and YouTube can see the screen when I share the screen, right? So it is Quran chapter 3 verse 7. And with Quran chapter 3 verse 7, this is what I'm going to do, right? Let me see this. I will take I'm going to take the translation let me see. Okay, let me leave the transliteration. Yeah, it's okay. Let me show the Arabic verse. The question was based on Quran chapter 3 verse 7. Nur Melani says, I want to make my own shirt now, Lord. Yeah, you can make your own shirt, no problem. So it says, Huwa allazi anzala alayka al-kitab minhu ayatu muhkamat hunna ummul kitab wa ukharu mutashabiha fa amma allazina fi qulubihim zaygun fayattabi'una ma tashabaha minhu ibtiga al-fitna wa ibtiga ta'wilih wa ma ya'lamu ta'wilahu illa Allah war-rasikhuna fil ilm yaquluna amanna bihi. Then he says, Kullu min indi rabbina wa ma yazzakkaru illa ulul albab. So that is the verse on the screen, which is Quran chapter 3 verse 7. And so the question I've been asked is pertaining to this verse. However, there is some essential parts of this verse which most of the time the mainstream sectarians twist or interpolate certain understandings to this verse. Many a times you hear people saying this mutashabiha, it means unclear. That is wrong, invalid. I need this. I need my sound. Where is it? Yeah, let me open. I want to use a particular sound here. Yeah, this sound. Okay, this is good enough. So many a times you hear people saying the mutashabiha mentioned there, it means unclear. That's not true. That is not true, right? When we say mutashabiha, we are talking about something similar. So I give an example. So in order to deal with this verse, normally what I do is if you check in the verse, the translation, I put a note, a footnote here. This blue mark you see with the verse reference is to just show you the idea of the mutashabiha. So when you go to Quran chapter 39 verse 23, chapter 39 verse 23, I'm going to use the mutashabiha. Then we are going to understand the context in which it has been used. Does it mean unclear? Does it actually means unclear? Because a lot of people will say ambiguous. They say ambiguous verses. What? You guys are bozos when you think the verses of the Quran are ambiguous. It's just because you have a shallow brain. You just need to study further to know that there's nothing ambiguous. There is no ambiguous verses in the Quran. So what they do is when they put the word ambiguous, it's a confusing word. And this is the meaning of ambiguous. So the ambiguous word is open to two or more interpretations or of uncertain nature or significance, or often intended to mislead. Because the moment you use the word ambiguous, that is problematic. Second meaning, having more than one possible meaning. Third meaning, that is having no intrinsic or objective meaning, not organized in conventional patterns. So when you use the word ambiguous, it is wrong. Don't use the word ambiguous for the word mutashabiha. It's stupidity if you do that, especially the Ahmadi religion of peace and light. Yeah, that's stupidity when you use that. when I had a dialogue with the guy, he was saying it is unclear, it's ambiguous. That's stupidity. I repeat, you are a bozo. Now, so God says in Quran chapter 39, verse 23, God says, Allahu nazzala ahsanal. It says, nazzala ahsanal hadith kitaban mutashabiha. So he used the word mutashabiha. He says a book. Then he used mutashabiha. So are you going to say unclear book? Or are you going to say ambiguous book? Okay, so let's see. Allahu nazzala ahsan al-hadith kitaban mutashabiha. Then he says mathaniya. Then he says takshairu minhu juludul lazina yakhshawna rabbahum thumma talinu juluduhum wa qulubuhum ila zikrullah. Zalika hudan lahi yahdi bihi man yasha. Then he says waman yudlillahu fama lahu min had. Do you get the point? So now the translation goes as this. This is Quran chapter 39 verse 23. It says God has revealed the best hadith. Hadith is an Arabic word. You bring it into English, the literal meaning is discourse, right? Discourse. That is the literal meaning. Something of a narration, that you have a discourse that, you know, it can be a discussion, involving a discussion, because in the Quran you find discussions between God and his messengers. You find discussions between God and angels. You find discussions, you understand, but even though at the same time it's like a story, getting a narration of historical issues that have happened. So when we say hadith, we are talking about a discourse. So now God has revealed the best discourse. Then he says a book. Then he continues by saying mutashabihan. So he used the word similar, because mutashabiha means similar. And when something is similar, let me show you something. When we say something is similar, it is marked by correspondence or resemblance, having the same or nearly the same characteristics. Nearly the same, not same, but nearly the same. Then number 3, it's resembling, having the same or some of the same characteristics, often used in combination. Number 4, expressing closely related meanings. Number 5, capable of replacing or changing places with something else, permitting mutual substitution without loss of function or suitability. Now, what you need to understand is in the Quran, you find a lot of mutashabiha, things being repeated, right? So the other day in my WhatsApp group, I was asked this question, right? So pertaining to this, in reference to 39:23, in the book, you will find a lot of verses being similarly repeating. So a book similarly repeating, then it says the skins of those who fear their Lord shiver thereof. Thus their skins and their hearts soften to the what? Remembrance of God. That is the guidance of God. Then it says what? By which he guides whomever he wills. As for one whom God leaves astray, then he will have no guide, right? You will not have any heart. Okay. So here, pertaining to the similarly repeated verses, in the book, you find a lot of verses being repeated as several times. I have a file on it where I shared it in my WhatsApp group. So let me give you some of the examples, right? Now, in terms of similarly repeated verses in the book, for instance, alhamdulillah. The Quran contains 114 chapters, right? And then you have 6,236 verses. Now, if you take Quran chapter 2, verse 35, You can compare it to Quran chapter 7 verse 19. It is a similar verse, not the same verse. It's a similar verse. It has similarity, right? If you take Quran chapter 33 verse 62 and you compare it to Quran chapter 48 verse 23, you will see it similarly stated, but not the same. If you take Quran chapter 1 verse 2 and you compare it to Quran chapter 37 verse 182, you will see it similarly repeated. Some might have one word difference, or some might have a slightly different arrangement, but is similarly repeated. Okay, so in instances like that, there are a lot of verses in the book which has been similarly repeated, but based on the context in which they are being used, it makes perfect sense, right? So just because it's a similarly repeating book doesn't mean everything is just a one-way story. No, we have the stories of Musa, stories of Isa, stories of Abraham, stories of Muhammad, stories of Noah, stories of Abraham, and so on and so forth. Do you see the point? Then again, based on this book that God has revealed as the best hadith, it is a book similarly repeating. So certain signs, verses in the Quran has been similarly repeated. But however, let's take the second understanding based on Quran chapter 3 verse 7 so that people will understand the breakdown I'm doing here. So now I take you back to Quran chapter 3 verse 7. Yeah. Yes, in Quran chapter 3 verse 7. So now God says, He says, Huwa allazi anzala alayka al-kitab minhu ayat muhkamat. So he says he is the one who has revealed the book to you, of which are precise signs. Now, there's a reason why, for those checking my translation, there's a reason why I use the word signs. Yeah, there's a reason why I use signs. The word ayat is the plural form of the word ayah. Ayah is the singular form. Ayat is the plural form. The word ayat in Arabic can mean symbols, can mean signs, can mean wonders, can mean verses, and so on and so forth. It can mean a lot of things, not only one meaning, right? So, but when you understand the subject of discussion and you understand the context, it makes it easy for you to understand which one is being referenced. So in this verse, I use two types of the meanings just to give you the second understanding if you want to take the understanding. But remember, Quran chapter 4 verse 82, God says, Afala yatadabbaruna al-Quran. Do they then not contemplate the Quran? Then he says, had it been from other than God, they will have found therein numerous discrepancies, or we can say contradictions. The words of God are not supposed to contradict each other. So this is why when you take a verse, you have to scrutinize the verse, contemplate the verse, just as it said in Quran chapter 38 verse 29. Kitabun anzalnahu ilayka mubarakun. Then he says, liyadabbaru ayatihi waliyatazakkar ulil albab. Right? This is a blessed book which we have revealed to you so that they, the people, may contemplate its verses. Right? So sometimes you have to sit down to contemplate a verse in order to find a contradiction, just to assess. When you see a contradiction, that understanding cannot be from God. Okay, so now, he is the one who has what? He is the one who has revealed the book to you, of which are precise signs. So I use the word here, signs. The word ayat, like I said, can mean verses and can mean signs. But here, preferably, I use the word signs and I underlined it. If you if you have the hardcover version of my translation, this one, there is a appendix. If you go to the appendix I've explained why you see the underlined verses in the Quran. When I translate, sometimes we find some places I've underlined it. When I underline it, sometimes there's a reference. You can go somewhere, another verse or another chapter to get a further elaboration on that. Because the Quran does the tafsil on its own. It's a tafsil al-kitab la rayba fi. Quran chapter 10 verse 37. It does the elaboration on its own. That is what the Quran does, right? So you get the answers in other chapters and other verses. Now, the reason why I chose the word signs and not to use the word verses, I will explain to you. You'll get to understand. Then it says, they are the source of the book. So the precise signs, they are the source of the book. They are the ones which makes up the book. The ones which are precise. And those ones can be used for judgment directly without any, we don't have to be wishy-washy, trying somebody who say, I have a different interpretation to this. No, there's no fooling there. No. Yeah, thank you, Brother Patrick. So he is the one who has revealed the book to you, Muhammad, of which are precise ayat. Then he says, they are the what? Source of the book. When we say ummah or ummu, it is something of the source where something comes from. So the source of the book. Then it says, while others. So the others here can still represent the signs, but you can see I put into brackets and I wrote the verses. Because you have to always look at the verses of the Quran. You look at it from different angles. You can look at it literally and non-literally. Always. You can look at it that way. So, however, we have some people who always think everything in the Quran is not literal. It has to just be non-literal. It doesn't work that way. That is a stupid way to look at the Quran. If you think everything is non-literal. And also, if you think everything in the Quran is literal, that's another stupid way of studying the Quran, right? So understand this. In some aspects, the Quran talks in a non-literal sense, whilst in some aspects, the Quran speaks in a literal sense, right? Okay. So then it says, others, which are the signs. So let's forget about the verses I put into bracket. I just put it for the sake of people who have extra understanding. So I put it in the blue listing. Then it says, other signs are similar, right? Okay. Now, kindly pay attention on the screen. I'm going to take the footnote out so that you learn how to read the word-for-word translations without being distracted by footnotes. Because many a times when you take a lot of the Qurans out there, the footnotes they put there can confuse you. Do you see the point? A lot of the times when you take a Quran translation, try to go for the word-for-word translation. Don't be sticking so much on the footnotes. It can confuse your understanding of the verses of God. So sometimes I will recommend footnotes for people who are highly advanced in studying the Quran. Then yes, you will need the footnote for something else. But if you are a novice or a beginner or not yet at the advanced level in terms of studying the Quran, please stick to the word-for-word translation you see in the Quran and understand it as it is. Don't let the footnote distract you. So let me show you how to understand this. Now, I'm going to read the verse again without the footnote. You will see that you don't find the verses I put into bracket. Now, the signs will remain there without the verses which are into bracket. So now he is the one who has revealed the book to you, of which are precise signs. So I underline the signs. They are the source of the book, while others, you see, there is no bracket of verses there or anything. Whilst others are similar. So we are still talking about the signs as the subject of discussion now. So the signs here, some are similar. So let's go. Let me explain the signs for you. For example, Quran chapter 27 verse 1. When you read Quran chapter 27 verse 1, it says Ta-Sin. Then it says Tilka ayatul Quran wa kitabin mubin. So he says, Tasin, this thing you just read, Tasin, these signs. He says these are signs of the Quran, because these are what you find in the Quran. Quran is the only book in this universe or in this world where you take the first verse is just giving you initials. Alif, La, Mim, Ha, Mi, Ya, Sin. So now people are like, what kind of book is this? You're just telling me letters? Yeah, that's a unique sense because it's not made by a human being. It's from God. So what do you expect? He has to speak the way you speak? No. You have to understand his language. So he is trying to let you understand what he is telling you. That's how to call your attention. Do you get my point? So now, Tasin, then he says, these are, if you translate it as verses, that's a problem. You are reading Tasin, you just mentioned something. So these are signs. In this point, you don't translate it as these are verses. That will be a nonsensical translation. So these are signs because they are symbols. These symbols are signs. They are ayat also. Like I told you, the word ayah has multiple meanings. You have to understand the subject of discussion and understand the context so that you get the clarity there. These are signs of the Quran and a clear book. God never said an unclear book. It's a clear book. So you just need to understand how the signs have been used in the Quran in order to get the clarity of the book, because a book has to be written down. Remember, the Quran is written down in a book. So when you read Quran chapter 56 verse 77, it says innahu la Quran al-Karim. Then it says fi kitabim maknun. Right? So the Quran al-Karim, you find it in a protected book. I heard some foolish people saying I should put to them a verse where it says the Quran is protected. Well, you are a damn ass. Read Quran chapter 56 verse 77 to 78. It tells you clearly, innahu la Quran al-Karim fi kitabim maknun, in a protected book. It didn't say your dirty ass to protect the Quran. He never told you and your what are they saying? They say, oh, Uthman took the copies, he burned the other copies, and seriously, your garbage books have nothing sensible to tell us. Seriously, we don't buy into that. The book of God is sufficient. God is the one to protect his own book. He is the same one to preserve his book. He never gave any human being the authority to preserve his book. Neither did he say any Sahaba or any, Hibijibis people to protect Quran. I dare any mushrik out there. Find babashuaib after this, call me and prove to me where he says any Sahaba should protect the book. If you're not, you are fooling yourselves. So here in Quran chapter 27 verse 1, you can see it says these are signs of the Quran. So these signs, we go back again to Quran chapter 3 verse 7. In Quran chapter 3 verse 7, without the footnotes, he is the one who has revealed the book to you, of which are precise signs. They are precise. Look, take any Quran you have. When you see Alif Lam Mim, take any Quran in this universe. These people will tell you there is Hafs, there is Warsh, there is Al-Duri, there is whatever. You just take it. Do you see those initials you are seeing there? The signs, they are precise. You take those signs, Alif, Lam, Mim, Yasin, Hamim, Qaf. You mentioned them. Those signs you are seeing there, they are precise, right? Okay. Then he says, they are the source of the book. Then he says, while others are similar. Now, when you go through the Quran, you find other signs are similar. Let's not limit the meaning to verses. Okay, I took you to Quran chapter 27 verse 1 to show you that even one letter can be called a sign. But however, in order to understand this verse, you can see that this verse is actually placing emphasis on some of the signs in the Quran that people are trying to derive similar meanings by following what they can concoct their own meaning. So I'm going to give you the understanding. You get the point clearly here. So God says, as for those in whose hearts is deviation, they will then follow what is similar, not the same, what is similar. I gave you the meaning of mutashabiha earlier on, right? Something which resembles, something which is nearly like the same, but not the same. Thereof, seeking discord and seeking its interpretation, but they do not know its interpretation except who? Except God. So there's a comma, right? But it doesn't stop there. Then it says, as well as those deeply rooted in knowledge. Now, when it says except God, there's a comma, not full stop, there's a comma. As well as those deeply rooted in knowledge. Now, those deeply rooted in knowledge, they will now say what? They say, we believe in it, all is from what? Our Lord. But only those of intelligence will take heed. Now, or will remember. Why is God placing emphasis on intelligence here? Because it takes intelligent people to understand an instruction. You understand? Imagine talking to a foolish person and an intelligent person at the same time. When you give a simple statement, the intelligent person can process it with his logic in the best possible manner. But do you see that foolish person? No way. They will say they need some dead scholars to process it for them, because the brain is not working. So they need somebody, a dead brain, to help them out. Now, pay attention to where God says, as for those in whose heart is deviation, they will then follow what is similar thereof. Now, ladies and gentlemen, have you paid attention to, sometimes you hear some people telling you salat is not literal, zakat is not literal, SIYAAM is not literal, hajj is not literal. What else? You have to help me with the list. SUJUUD is not literal, ruku is not literal, sadaqah is not literal, right? All this subject matter of discussion, all these things, people will be telling you, this is not literal, this is not literal, this is non-literal. So what they do is, God is saying, as for those who have deviation in their hearts, they will then follow what is similar of that sign. Because if just a sign is written, let's say salat, this can be classified as a sign. So let's say salat is written. This salat written, we have somebody who will tell you, no, salat doesn't mean this, so it means that. Yet when you ask them, where did you get this meaning of this, it becomes a problem. So you hear, I don't know, many of you, you've heard somebody who say salat means commitment. Just ask them where they got the meaning from. Where does it come from? Where does it emanate from? Where did they get this meaning? Commitment. Where does it come from? Some people will say salat means duty. You just ask them, where did they get this meaning from? Where does it come from? Okay. Then it's out of this, some people went to the extent to find the meaning following closely. So they found the meaning following closely. Right? So what they will do is, I go back to the verse so that you understand what I'm talking about. As for those in whose hearts is deviation, they will then follow what is similar thereof. Because those which are similar, let me give an example. These people will take one word and try to say, oh, look here, it means it cannot mean this. So since it cannot mean this, that means over here too, it doesn't mean the same thing. So it means this. So then they create their own meaning now, because they don't go with the flow of the meaning, whilst forgetting that in Arabic, one word can have multiple meanings. But look, there is a history of etymology. There is where the word evolves from. But what baffles me is, instead of going into the timeline of the word to understand how the word has been utilized, some people will go to some poetry books, to go to hadith books and say they are going to find the meaning of that particular word, which is problematic. So as for those in whose hearts is the deviation, what they do is, if, for instance, God mentioned the word salah, if they, for instance, they say here it means pray, they will use the pray in every aspect of the Quran again. So they will go to the extent, Quran chapter, let's say 33, verse 56. Here, you see it says, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu tasliman. So you have people who don't have that that deeply rooted in knowledge, in understanding the Quran. What they do is, they will say, oh, how can God pray? Because since pray, it means pray. You understand? So what they do is seeking their own meaning, seeking its interpretation. So now what they do is, they will go and concoct a different meaning which cannot be traced in the history of that word. I give you an example. For people who know the history of how etymology works, it's a history of a word, the study of the sources and development of words. Now, in order to understand how words work, this is the verse I usually teach people around me if they want to understand how words work in the Quran. In Quran chapter 14, verse 24, God says, have you not seen how God cites the example of a good word, like a good tree, whose roots is fixed and its branches are in the sky? Verse 25, its fruits occurs all the time by the permission of its Lord. And God cites the examples for the people, perhaps they will take heed. Okay. Verse 26, and the example of a bad word, like a bad tree uprooted above the ground, it has no stability. God reinforced those who believe with a firm word in the worldly life and in the hereafter, and God sends the transgressors astray, and God does whatever he wills. Okay. I just read Quran chapter 14, verse 24. If you read up to verse 25, it's telling you how a good word is like a good tree whose root is what? Fixed. So now when you take words in the Quran, they have root words. They are root words. Now a root word is like it's like a good tree which has a root. Now when you know when a tree is growing, so let me maximize my screen so that I explain better. When a tree is growing from the roots, it grows with the stem coming up, then it starts creating branches. You know, words, if you study the etymology of words, they have branches. The word growing up, where it evolves, it starts creating branches. It creates from the roots. That's why in Arabic we have the trilateral root word, and we have 4 root word as well. 4-letter root word, and we have the 3-letter root word as well, right? Okay, so this root word coming, it grows like this and it starts creating branches. That's why we have the suffix and the affix, the prefix, and so on. So you have the prefix, you have the affix, the word start growing, germinating, and then it start having branches. Now, as it is evolving, some of the meanings are slightly balancing, but it doesn't become the same, but it can be similar, but not the same. Then we have words which can stem from the same roots, but it can have both negative and positive connotation. So for example, the word sacred, the word haram in the Quran, haram. When we say haram, it can mean forbidden. And then at the same time, it can mean sacred. That's the word haram, right? Haram. Now, some people will say, hey, how can forbidden and sacred stem from the yes? They can stem from them. You know, usually when something is sacred, you are being cautioned about touching it or going next to it, about, you understand it, manhandling or misusing it. So to that extent, we can use it in another word form and say, hey, this is forbidden for you to touch. Then the condition arises, except this and that and that. Do you see? So the word haram comes from the same root word with the word forbidden and then sacred and then sanction. You understand? Prohibited. Same root. But then because they are coming from the same root, they start creating branches. So this one goes left and this one goes right. So this is why when you go to a tree, you take a fruit. Even though it is a good tree, sometimes you taste the fruit and then this fruit tastes sour. And then you take another fruit and then you say, this one tastes sweet. But it's coming from the same tree, right? Same tree with the same roots and the same seed. But because it germinated and then started creating branches, you will eat the same fruit. You will find some sweet and some are bitter. Do you get? But it doesn't mean the tree itself is bad. No, the tree is good. But when growing into branches, it doesn't become the same anymore. It becomes similar. That is why we have word forms and we have synonyms. Synonyms means they are similar, not the same. They are similar in meaning. Then they keep expanding going forward. But then it will get to a point you can use this word into this context, but in another given time, you cannot use that word in the in that same context, even though they share the same similar meaning. I know most of you are getting what I'm saying. For those who understand how etymology works and how word forms work and how the prefix and the suffix and the affix of words work, you get to know what I'm saying. Okay. Anyways, let's go back to the verse. So we go back to Quran chapter 3, verse 7. So by this, we have people who will tell you, oh, the word sujood doesn't mean prostration. Nowhere in the Quran it means prostration. So to them, that's it. It's just about a new meaning. So they don't go anymore with the etymology of the word and how it evolves and how it works. They don't care. They just form their own meaning. So this is why we have people who tell you salat means commitment. If you ask them, where does this meaning come from? Oh, they created their own meaning. They will say it means duty. According to which dictionary and which etymology did we get this? Oh, they just create their own meaning out of nowhere. Okay. So they will tell you ruku is not, it's not literal. The ruku is just, you just yield and then that's it. That's ruku. One word can have multiple meanings. We are not denying that in the Quran, you can find things which are non-literal. We are not denying that. However, to brush off everything and say, no, this cannot be literal, always non-literal, now that's around nonsense. You get the point. So that they'll go to the point, some of them will go to the point you say, salat means following closely. If you ask them, where did you get this meaning? They say, I went to a poetry book, one poem by this Arab poets, and they wrote it, and they say salat means following closely. When a horse is following another horse, and then the one is behind it, so it becomes al-musalli, and then it becomes salah means following. That's it. If you ask them, so salah means following closely, it doesn't mean anything else. They'll say, yeah, I think it means something else, but it's only following closely. It cannot be anything else. Why? Let me show you the verse they use. So they will quote Quran chapter 75. Oh, sorry. Quran chapter 75, verse 31. So let's go here. So many a times you hear them saying, Fala saddaka wala salla. Then they will say, Walakin kazzaba wa tawalla. This is what they say. Usually, you hear them saying this. So they say, Fala saddaka wala salla. Now, this is where it baffles me, because they are limiting this is a verb here. It's used as a verb. This is a second form of a verb in the Arabic, syntax. This is the word form, verb form number 2. So it has what we call the shadda. It is a strong that thing like the W, the shadda, we call it to strengthen the word, right? Is the verb form number 2. So now they take this verb, then they say wala saddaka, fala saddaka wala salla. Then he says walakin kazzaba wa tawalla. Then they will tell you that the upper side, since it is talking about this saddaka and salla, then they will say the opposite of saddaka is kazzaba. Then they will say the opposite of salla is tawalla. Have you ever heard that? They normally say this. That's what they say. And I wonder where they get the opposite of this becoming this. Where did they get that idea? If that is the case, you forget that every word form, a verb, has multiple meanings. Are you only limiting the salah to this word and saying that since here is the opposite of this, so it cannot mean prayer, so that means that is the only meaning? Is that how your brain works? No, that is a flawed argument. You don't just go to the Quran, take a word, and then create your own similar meaning and say, okay, this is a new meaning for it. So it cannot mean this, so that's it. So normally their arguments stem from the chapter 75, verse 31. This is where the arguments stem from. So mark it down. Just ask them, is that the only meaning of salah? The word salah as a verb, is that the only meaning? Because when we say word form, when you take a word form and you create it as a verb, it has multiple meanings. Even the word kill as a verb, K-I-L-L, kill, as a verb, it doesn't always mean kill somebody literally. Do you get my point? It doesn't always mean. You have to understand the subject of discussion and the context. So if you go in the Quran, somewhere you find the word salah, it doesn't actually mean pray. And then in some instances, yes, it means pray. Yes, it means so. Do you get my point? So this is how it works. So based on Quran chapter 3, verse 7, when God was talking about those with deviance in their heart, this is what they do. They will take a sign from the Quran, and what they do is, as for those in whose heart is deviation, they will then follow what is similar. If they find any word which is similar, for instance, they see the word salah, and then they find another salah which is similar, they will then follow what is similar thereof, seeking what? Seeking what? Seeking discord. They bring confusion. That is number one. The confusion is to tell you, oh, no, we don't agree. Salah cannot be prayer. Zakat cannot mean charity. Hajj cannot mean pilgrimage. You know what? SIYAAM cannot mean to abstinence. It doesn't mean that. So then what they will do is what? Then and seeking its interpretation. So what they do is now they go out of the line of the etymology of the word. So what they do is they create a new meaning. Salat means commitment. Salat means duty. This is what they do. I want to face these people and ask them, where did you get this meaning from? They will prove it to the correctional officer that day. Where did you get it from? We want to trace the word, where you got that meaning. And we will scrutinize your sources and see where you got it from. So seeking its interpretation, then God says what? But they do not know its interpretation except who? God. As well as those deeply rooted in knowledge. And this is where to be deeply rooted in knowledge places an emphasis on this topic. Because you have to know the information you are dealing with. Quran chapter 17 verse 36, it says, do not pursue that of which you have no knowledge. If you don't have knowledge about something, don't pursue it. So which means you can't be talking without knowledge. Anything you say, you have to prove it based on knowledge, not just agreement, your wishful thinking. Oh, I think it means this. I think it just cannot mean this. I think it means this. No. It doesn't work like that. You prove it. Yeah. Okay. And by the way, when I say the correctional officer is not only here for the mushriks or the Sunnis, the Shia. Correctional officer is here for everybody. I'm not here for only Christians. I'm not here for only mushriks. I'm here for everybody. So even if you are a Quran alone follower and you are messing up, correctional officer is waiting for you. I'm serious. Yeah, I'll make sure we straighten your brains up. Yeah, because a lot of you are messing up. The foolishness is too much. Let's go again. So I was asked a question pertaining, let me see. It's pertaining Nisa, the word Nisa. And these same people again, they'll go again around again. They say the Nisa doesn't mean women. Hey, oh my God. Ladies and gentlemen, when you read Quran chapter, let me put the verse. When you read Quran chapter 10, verse 37, God says, وَمَا كَانَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ أَنْ يُفْتَرَى مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ وَلَكِنْ تَصْدِيقَ الَّذِي بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ. Then he says, وَتَفْصِيلَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ مِنْ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And this is not the Quran that could be invented by other than God. However, it is a confirmation. Listen carefully. It is a confirmation. It is a confirmation of what? What was before it. There is something before it. Right? Then God says, and an elaboration of the Al-Kitab, the book, there is no doubt therein from the Lord of the worlds. So the purpose of the Quran is to serve as a confirmation of what was before it, and then an elaboration. So which means Quran is not bringing anything new. Whatever the Quran has to tell you is something which has been said previously. Quran is coming to place an emphasis and to confirm, so that you understand that Quran is not bringing anything new to us, to confirm things. Do you get my point? So then you have the concept of ideas that people are creating new meanings to things which never existed. And you're like, where are these people getting this concept for? Like, hello. Okay. Again, Quran chapter 5, verse 48. In Quran chapter 5, verse 48, God says, and we have revealed the book to you in truth, confirming what was before it of the book and governing over it. So judge between them by what God has revealed, and do not follow their inclinations concerning what has come to you of the what? The truth. Then he says, to each of you we have made a law and a method. And if God had willed, he would have made you one nation. But he has to test you through what he has given you. So compete in good deeds. To God is your return altogether. Then he will inform you about what you have deferred. So pay attention here. And we have revealed the book to you in truth, confirming what was before it of the book and governing over it. So the idea of the book God has given to us is to confirm something of the past. It is not bringing something new where you have following closely and the commitment and the duties and then the debate. So some saying Hajj is a debate. It is not a pilgrimage. The SIYAAM is just to consume and absorb something, to consume and absorb. So God doesn't know we will consume and absorb. We have to wait till Ramadan, the month of Ramadan. They will say the harvest moon. You have to wait till September. They will say equinox, right? You have to wait till equinox before you absorb and consume the Quran. Hey. Look, Quran chapter 7, verse 16 to 17 to 18. The devil made a promise that he is going to sit on the straight path. He will come to us from the right, from the left, from the front, from the back. And a lot of people will be ungrateful. Yeah. Seriously. A lot of people will be ungrateful. That's the promise of the devil. So be careful when people twist meanings, concoct new wordings, new meanings, tell you things which Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. Okay. Let's go. Now, somebody was asking a question pertaining to the word Nisa. The person says, I've read many translations of chapter 5, verse 6, and it raised the following questions. Does Nisa only mean women? That's the number one question. It is based on the person reading Quran chapter 5, verse 6. So let me put it on the screen, right? So in order to understand something. In Quran chapter 5, verse 6, God is saying, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. So when he says, oh, you who believe, he's talking to all believers, including women. It's not isolating. In the Arabic grammar, amanu here is those who believe, including men and women, everybody. It is not singling out men alone, right? What God normally does is when he's talking to both genders, he actually put more weight on the male than the female, but it is passed across to the female, right? So when you take the Arabic structure of the Quran, for instance, Quran chapter 1, Surah Al-Fatiha, when you are reading up to the last part, you don't see anything feminine in whatever is being told, but yet it is combined with us and the women, right? It's a combination of all of us. So what God does is he starts using the first gender instead of using the second gender to speak. But when he wants to differentiate, then that is when he mentioned the second gender specifically, so that you understand how he differentiates the instances. However, Quran is a unique book whereby when you take every word, you have to scrutinize the word and examine the utility of that word, how it has been utilized. Now, take the word, the verse, Quran chapter 5, verse 6. It says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, iza kuntum ila salat. O you who have believed, when you get up for the salat, that's the litany. Then he says, then wash your faces. So he says, Fagusilu wujuhakum. This wujuhakum, you see, he's talking to all of us. He's talking to all of us, including women. It doesn't isolate only men. Just like we tell God, Ehidina Sirat al-Mustaqim, Sirat al-Lazina an'amta alayhim. This alayhim includes both men and women altogether. Gair magdubi alayhim walad dualin. Alayhim still includes men and women. Ehidina, guide us, still includes men and women. Do you understand? Okay, now let's break this down. The person's confusion was raised up by this verse. So let's examine this verse before we decipher the misunderstanding. All you who believe, when you get up for the salat, then wash your faces and your hands to the elbows and wipe your heads and your legs to the heels. But if you are unclean, then cleanse. So up to this part, then cleanse, it all includes both men and women if we are unclean. Then now it goes, and if you are sick, it still includes men and women. Or on a journey, it still includes men and women. Or one of you comes from the toilet, it still includes men and women. And cannot find water, it still includes men and women, right? Then it says, or you have touched women. So now based on this and Nisa here, this is what we call womankind. The word womankind is Nisa. Womankind is Nisa, right? Okay. That is the literal sense of the word. Nisa. Okay. And cannot find water. Now, this act of la mastumun nisa is talking about a sexual activity that can get you unclean. You understand? A sexual activity that can get you unclean. So now, remember, whenever God gives us the verses, it's saying that it is a blessed book which he has revealed so that they may contemplate its verses, and that those of intelligence will what? Will take heed. Quran chapter 38, verse 29. So contemplating the verses is very essential. God was talking to everybody in this verse. This verse mentioned both men and women. But it gets to a point in the same verse, it is not isolating the statement only to a particular gender. But then it gets to a point in the verse, it mentions a gender different from the gender. So now, we're talking about believers entirely. These believers include men and women. But then when he gets to a point, God wants to decipher between men and women, then he says, or you have touched women. So now, you have touched women is being addressed to men in that particular verse, because entirely the verse is being addressed to both men and women. So now, in order for God to decipher in that same verse, to decipher between men and women, and to know which portion is meant for which gender, then God says, all you have touched the women. So now, every intellectual person reading this verse knows that this portion is for a man being spoken about in order to touch a woman that is in a sexual activity and cannot find water. Then aim at a nice field and wipe your faces and your hands thereof. So it means similarly, if that woman God mentioned in this verse touch a man, so this is why as God used the word, or you have touched the women, because the woman is being touched by the man. So it is both ways. She's also entitled to what? To find water. Because it takes the man to touch her. So God has to mention the womankind, which is the Nisa. The word Nisa is a womankind. So he mentioned the Nisa so that he can decipher from the same verse. Then we know that this statement goes for both. Because when a man, a woman, and a woman copulate, they become filthy. So what they need to do is to purify. That is to take a shower, to bath. So if you cannot find water, it goes both ways for the man and woman. Do you see the logic there? Okay. But some are trying to say that why does it isolate the women by saying women, if you have touched the women? Does it imply that Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, since it included both men and women? Does it imply that the women are also touching the women? God does not command anybody to immorality. Do you understand? It's just how you reason with, you contemplate on a verse logically to understand how to decipher the understanding God is giving from the verse. So this is why he isolated the word Nisa so that we can know what is being spoken about. So in this context, when a man touches the woman, both of them still have to shower. They need to find water to purify themselves. Okay, but then the person's argument rose from this verse. So let's go forward. So the person says, does Nisa only mean women? In Arabic, one word doesn't only mean one thing, but when it is used as a subject of discussion, yes. When it's used as a subject of discussion, in that subject, it remains one. So for instance, when you take the chapter of Nisa, it means women. That's the chapter. That's the name of the chapter, women or womankind. The word Nisa is womankind, right? Womankind. And when we say womankind, this is the word. Women as distinguished from men. So womankind. It can be a young lady, young woman, you understand? Adult woman, old woman, menopause, still womankind. Then when we say nas, we are talking about mankind. But mankind, when you take the dictionary, it will give you all of the living human inhabitants of the earth. So usually God mentioned nas, which is mankind, and he mentioned nisa, which is womankind. Okay. So for instance, if you go to Quran chapter 3 verse 14. Let me let you understand how to decipher this word in the Quran. In Quran chapter 3 verse 14, check how God utilized the word. Oh, what did I do? Sorry. Quran chapter 3 verse 14. If you go to Quran chapter 3 verse 14 here, now we are going to isolate the word nas and isolate the word nisa in the context of the Quran. In this context, mankind is mentioned and womankind is mentioned. So in this context, this verse is being talked to the men. Because in this same verse, God deciphered between mankind and womankind. So now check how it's utilized. God says, adorn for mankind. Now he's talking to the men. Adorn for mankind is the love of craving for women. That is womankind. Then he says, quintal vaults of what? Of gold, branded horses. Then it goes ahead to say what? That is the enjoyment of the worldly life. But with God is the best of return. So now, if you stick to the chapter 3, verse 14, understand it in the context in which God is using it. He is deciphering between mankind and womankind. But we have other contexts that you can join them together. Yes, in other contexts, when it's mentioned mankind and nas, you can include women into it, the context. For instance, Quran chapter 114, verse 1 downwards, you can include women in the context. But when he deciphers by mentioning the womankind separate from the subject, then you get to understand, okay, here God is being specific. He mentioned the women and he mentioned the men. So he says, adorn for mankind, linas, this is mankind. That is mankind. Is the love of craving for women. Womankind. Nisa. So you see, the Nisa has been mentioned and then mankind has been mentioned, which is nas. But when you go to another context, when mankind is mentioned, it includes both genders, both the men and the women altogether. Just as when Quran says ya ayyuhallazina amanu, it includes both men and women. But then you go to certain verses where God would decipher by mentioning mu'minina and mention mu'minat based on the context, if he has something to share to both genders. Do you understand? So when it comes to understanding the Quran, all you need is to scrutinize the subject matter and then understand the context in which words are used, so that you get to understand why God is using a particular choice of word to bring clarity from the discussion. Okay. Then again, the person said what? Let me see. Says, should Nisa be translated as women in this verse? Chapter 5, verse 6, should Nisa be translated as women in this verse? Yes, I just explained there's nothing wrong with when Nisa is translated as a woman in that verse. Is Allah really referring to physical cleansing ritual that just one gender must do before performing? The verse doesn't say only one gender should perform that. Yeah. Even the woman has to do it. Yes, because she becomes unclean. Do you see? She also becomes unclean. You just have to understand the subject from beginning. She also has to be unclean because it's a two-way street act. So if two people do an act, they both become unclean. So the water is needed. Do you see the point? Okay. Then the person says, according to the traditional translation and translation by Quran alone scholars, except from a few I'm aware, nearly, then she mentions some name, Adib Yuxel, Majd Khalaf, Al-Moses translation. This ayah instruct those who amanu to cleanse themselves before the ritual salah if they have been intimate with women. If we accept the apparent meaning of the ayah and that Nisa can only be translated to mean women, No, Nisa cannot only be translated to mean women. And this is my problem when it comes to understanding. Look, one word you find in Arabic language is not isolated in meaning. It's not only restricted to one meaning. In the advent of understanding how a word is utilized, understand the subject matter first. That is what determines the meaning at that given time. If you understand the subject matter, that is what is going to determine the meaning. Okay, so let's say yesterday France and Germany played a football France and Spain played a football match. Now the subject matter is football. So then I said Spain killed France. Whoever knows about the subject I'm talking about will know that the word kill I used has nothing to do with literally killing in terms of death. No. It talks about elimination from a tournament. So anybody who knows about what I'm talking about concerning yesterday's match between Spain and France, they will know the context of what the word I used, which is kill. So I'm saying Spain killed France based on the match played yesterday. So any person who knows the subject I'm talking about will understand the context. I just used the word kill. You get my point? So in the Quran, you will not just find any word and then you say it only means this. No. Quran, certain words are open for more meanings. You just need to understand the subject matter and then the context in which it is used. If it is used as a definite article, which has a specified reference, then that is the question mark there, because then we have to determine what is the subject matter, what is intended first, before we break down into the verse itself to understand what is being discussed. And then she said that Nisa, okay, then what am I not getting right? And the salah itself, regardless of what you believe, it is only mandated for men. She said, then the ritual cleansing before the salah and the salah itself, regardless of what you believe, it is only mandated for men, since Allah only endorses intimate relationships between men and women. So the traditional translation actually makes the bold assertion that both practices are specifically for men. No, they are not only for men. Actually, God deciphers that claim in Quran chapter 33. Is it 35? Let me see. In Quran chapter 33, verse 35. If you go to that verse, it says, Innal Muslimina, then it says, Wal Muslimat, Wal Mu'minina, Wal Mu'minat, Wal Qanitina, Wal Qanitat. Then it goes. So it says, indeed, the submitting men and the submitting women, the believing men and the believing women, the obedient men and the obedient women, the truthful men and the truthful women, the patient men and the patient, and then it goes, the patient up downwards. So you can see both men and women share the same qualities in terms of faith. When there's a man believer, there's also a woman believer. So in Islam, practicing certain aspects of faith is not only limited to only men. It goes both ways for both men and women. And then says, Allah is precise and specific with language, and a key stylistic feature of the Quran is that explicit references to men, males, boys, sons are always what? Followed by a reference to women, females, girls, daughters, for example, 249 and so on. The wisdom expounded by the kalam of Allah is limitless. So should we really restrict our understanding of the word Nisa to the traditional apparent meaning in this case? No, we are not supposed to restrict our understanding. Just like I said, one word can have multiple meanings. So there is always room to understand words in different subjects and context they are used. Yeah, so you come around people who tell you Nisa doesn't mean women, right? So this is where it baffles me. When the moment somebody say this word doesn't mean women, that's a laughable. But however, it's not only restricted to the meaning womankind or women. Yes, it can have other meaning, right, as well. So you just need to understand. But to say that it doesn't mean women, that argument should not be taken seriously anymore. Yeah. Yeah, salam, Zach Sparrow. Salam to you. True Nature says, Baba, what can you say about Quran 4:34? It doesn't say you should beat women. It just says you should separate from them. You separate from them. That is if they are not, they don't meet the criteria God is actually commanding them to be. I have a video on that on my YouTube channel. I spoke about that verse. You just renounce them. It's a form of separation, but it is not to beat them. If anybody tells you that God asked you to beat women, just ask the person with what. If God, if anybody tells you God said you should beat women, just ask them with what? With your hand, with a cane, with a stick, with what? Just ask them. Anybody who said you have to beat women, and then ask the same person, what about if a man is acting stupid or foolish? Is a woman also supposed to beat him or not? Just ask that. So ladies and gentlemen, let me see. I was asked a question based on Quran chapter 39 verse 42. It says, can you explain this to me? Does it mean that the people destined to die, that Allah keeps their soul? Let me put the verse. Quran chapter 39. In Quran chapter 39 verse 42, God takes away the souls at the time of their death, and whose will not die during its sleep. Thus he seizes that for which he has decreed death, and sends the order until a fixed term. Indeed, there are signs in that for people who ponder. So based on the question I was asked, it says, can you explain this to me? Does it mean that the people destined to die, that Allah keeps their soul? That is what the verse implies. God takes away the souls at the time of their death, and whose will not die during its sleep. Thus he seizes that for which he has decreed death. So if he has decreed death, at that time he seizes it away. It's not coming back. And that is why some people die in their sleep. They sleep, they don't wake up again. Right? They sleep, and that is it. They are gone. I wanted to put a verse. Let me see. Yeah. In Quran chapter 3 verse 145, God says, وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ أَن تَمُوتَ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. Then he says, kitaban mu'ajjala. He says, and it is not for a soul, for someone, a soul, to die except by the permission of what? God, at a decreed time. Right? So anybody who dies is based on the permission of God. The person cannot die unless when his time is up, then he will die. So let me put my phone number on the screen for the question and answer, because I might have to go soon. Let me see. This is my WhatsApp number on the page. Let me see. That is my WhatsApp number on the page, right? So kindly, you can call and ask your question. When you check on the page, it says +358 466 803144, right? A question is asked. Chapter 21, verse 35 says, every soul shall taste death. But here in the verse 44:56 says that the believers do not taste death therein beyond the first death, the death that happened before God sent us to earth. Doesn't this verse 44 verse 56 contradict with the verse 21:35, which says that every soul will taste death? But in verse 45:56, which verse are you quoting? 45:56 or 44:56? (44:56). It's 44:56. Alam Shah, you are quoting 44:56. Okay, let's take away the misconception. There's a misconception here. I think you misunderstood something, right? So Alam Shah is asking if there's a contradiction. So let's examine the verse. So first of all, we go to 21:35. In 21:35, when you read the context from verse 34, right? He says, and we did not grant eternity to any human before you. He's talking to Muhammad, peace be upon him, right? We did not grant eternity, meaning for the person to be immortal. Eternity to any human before you, Muhammad, right? Then he says, so if you will die, then are they immortals? Will those people be immortals? So that is the context. So then it goes 35. Then it says, every soul will taste death or shall taste death. So it is in the context of being on earth. He's talking to the prophet. After that, he says, if you would die, are they immortals? They will also die. So then he went ahead to say, every soul will taste death. While we test you, because it's on the earth, we will be given the trials. You are not going to be given trials when you are in paradise. It is the trials here. So whilst we test you with trials of evil and good, and to us you will be returned. So that is when, after your deeds are done, the trials are done on earth, then you return to God. So now let's go to 44:56. And again, to understand the context, you read from above. Let's start from, let's say, verse 55. God says, they will request all fruits therein safely. You can see he's talking about paradise when they are in heaven. That's the paradise. So that's the context. Understand the context. They will not taste death therein, that is in paradise again, except the first death. That is the first death you had on earth. And he will safeguard them, that is in paradise, from the punishment of hell. So there, they are not going to hell. They will be in paradise. So he's safeguarding them. So the first death you had on earth, you are not going to taste death again after when he has resurrected you. There is no tasting death if you are going to paradise. That is what the context entails here. Then he says, as favor from your Lord, that is a great achievement. Because remember, Quran chapter 39, verse 61 says, you will only be saved by your achievements on the day of judgment, right? So that is the achievement you are getting. So the context is clear. It has that chapter 21, verse 35 is talking in the context of on the earth, whilst the context of 44, verse 56 is about paradise. Yeah, Jacob, thank you very much. So Nara Power is asking that, sorry for this question, it's God who gives wealth or money, or it's your efforts and prayers that makes it possible? There is a saying that if you are not destined to get money, even if you work in the bank and they put a glue on your body, they will put you into the bunker and you will not come come out with even $1. You understand? So it's God who grants wealth. Let me answer this question before I answer this call. Right? When you go to Quran chapter 42, verse 12, it says, "To him belongs the keys of the heavens and the earth. He extends sustenance from whomever he wills and limits. Indeed, he is aware of all things." The rich man, you think he's rich. What if God made him as somebody with stroke? What if he was paralyzed? What if he doesn't have any brain? What if God made him powerless? Will he get the wealth he got? You understand? So God has assigned. It's just like, in a competition, when you watch sports, the athletes, sometimes they arrange them in a lane. They arrange them according to how good you are. Then they put you in the position. It becomes an advantage for you. Now, in life, God has made somebody rich and somebody poor. He did that in order to test us, right? So now, what he did is, in the beginning of the race, some people are given tools. Whilst in the beginning of the race, some people might not be given tools. But remember, we are going to face the same trials in life. That is why in the beginning, some people can be rich and then they end up being poor. While some people can be poor in the beginning and then they end up being rich. It is about the tools you get and how you utilize it. Somebody can be given a car, they don't use it well. But somebody can be given the same car and they will use it very, very well. You understand? So God decides all this. So to him belongs all the keys. When we say the keys to Sussex, keys to everything, he has all that, right? He's the one who makes people rich and poor. It's a test. So when you read Quran chapter 67 and you read verse 2, he says, "The one who created life and death in order to test you as to which of you is best indeed. And he is the Almighty, the forgiving." What did I miss? Yeah, salam, brother Rahim Rafi. I see you. Yeah, you're welcome, Alam Shah. Yeah, somebody is asking me a question. He says, "What about chapter 40, verse 11? But this verse talks about 2 lives and 2 deaths." Okay, let's go to that verse. Before we go to that verse, let's go to Quran chapter 2, verse 28. Chapter 2, verse 28. So God says, "How can you disbelieve in God while you were lifeless? You were lifeless and he gave you life. Then he will cause you to die. Then he will give you life. And then you will be returned to him." Now, the first lifelessness you had is still considered as death because you were not there. You didn't exist. It's like death. You didn't exist. Before babashuaib was born, I was dead, meaning lifeless. Even though in Arabic that same word can be, the same word is used as mate. Amwat, that's death, lifeless. So God is asking a question. How can you disbelieve in God while you were lifeless? You were dead. And he gave you life. Now he brought you. Then he will cause you to die. Then he will give you life again. That is on the day of judgment. So let's count this. How can you disbelieve in God while you were lifeless? Number one, that is one death. And then he gave you life. You were born on earth. That is one life. Then you will die. That is 2 deaths. Then he will raise you again on the day of judgment. So how many lives now? 2 lives. So 2 deaths and 2 lives. So now let's go to Quran chapter 40, verse 11. In Quran chapter 40, verse 11, the disbelievers will tell God on the day of judgment. They will say, our Lord, you caused us to die 2 times. Do you see the point? You were lifeless, and he gave you, because before you came to the earth, you were with God. Then he brought you to life. So you were lifeless. Then he brought you to life on earth. Then you died. And then he raised you back again there. So 2 lives, 2 deaths. So now they, the disbelievers, are reaffirming what God said. Now, so now listen. On the day of judgment, they will tell God. They will say, our Lord, you caused us to die twice and gave us life twice, 2 times. So we have confessed our sins. Therefore, is there any way to exit, to go back? No, no way. 2 lives, 2 deaths. It's done. Otito. Or is it Otitan or Otilo? That is done. So that is the answer to your question, right? So for people who are calling, let me call back. Somebody called. Let me call this person back. Abdul Wahab, I'm calling you back.
Assalamu alaikum, brother Shoaib.
Yeah, wa alaikum salam, brother. Yeah, how are you?
Yes, Abdul Wahab.
Yes, brother. How may I help you?
Yes. Okay. So, I had a problem the other day, right? So I went to the masjid, right? And I just want to tell you this quick story, right? I do have a question. So I went to the masjid, and I was talking to one of the brothers, and I was asking him about the same Surah 75 ayat from 15 to 19, right? Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet that, you don't have to explain the Quran. He makes it clear, right? And stuff like that. Now, brother, like that was the worst thing that I could have ever done, right? Okay, so I was telling the brothers this and stuff like that, and then I was asking them about hadiths, because I turned and said what I said, showed them the verse, and then I said, well, why do we have hadiths? Why are the hadiths explaining the verses and stuff like that? And stuff like that. And that was like the worst thing. People started raising up in the masjid, like they wanted, like they wanted to just like get rid of me. You understand what I'm saying? So like this was a bad thing. But what I also came to understand, that when you read different Qurans, right, they have like different interpretations of the verses, right? So it's kind of hard to talk to people, and I know a lot of people use your Quran. Like for instance, the brother that has that YouTube channel, Ayub Kareem, Quran Inspires Me, right? And a lot of his videos, he talks about you, and he uses and he tells people that they should use your Quran, right? But
which one? You mean Brother Mohammed or Ayub Kareem?
No, Ayub Kareem. Brother Muhammad does mention you too. Brother Muhammad has mentioned you more than one time in his videos.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And Brother Ayub Kareem and the elderly brother with the big when he grew his leaky ears, it's kind of getting big right now. The one with the gray hair, where you did a YouTube video with him too.
Brother,
right?
That's Dr. Omar Zaid.
Yes, brother.
Okay, yeah.
So these brothers are like putting it out there that this is the Quran to use. It is like it's so clear, and it's a little bit better for people who, for instance, right? Some Qurans would use thy and thou, and like if it's Roman, speaking.
Like the ancient version.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. So these brothers do recommend it and stuff like that. But and then I didn't think about that. But matter of fact, so I realized this, right? Then now to watch Ayub Kareem video, and he was saying that in some of the Qurans, right? They don't explain some of the words. Not every word or everything is explained in the Quran. So they leave it out, and certain words they leave it out, and then they put in their own interpretation of who this verse is talking about, and and what it's talking about and stuff like that, right? And I especially find this prevalent in hold on, which one is this? I'm using an old Quran. I think this is what's the most popular, what's his name? There's a brother that
Yusuf Ali.
Yes, Yusuf Ali, right? So a lot of people are using the Yusuf Ali Quran, and like there's certain words and certain things that is not fully explained, and then they put in their own stuff in it, and then they have the footnotes and all that kind of stuff at the bottom. So it's kind of difficult to talk to people and to explain to them the Quran if they don't use your Quran, because they only have one interpretation, because they're using a particular Quran and the interpretation. So it's kind of hard to explain to them and stuff like that, because they don't know a lot of words and stuff like that. So right. So
I
I just
understand.
wanted to tell you.
Yeah, I understand the problem you are. This is a common problem. It's a common problem everywhere, and this
Oh
is
wow.
why, with the help of God, God actually gave people like me the chance to be able to translate the Quran, so people can get easy access to the words than being confused about this kind of discrepancies. But yeah, this is something we are tackling, so it will be tackled. So what is your main question actually?
Okay. Okay. I don't want to be like too like I was trying to that verse that you was talking about, right? When you said like touching the woman, right? I
Yeah.
don't want to be like extremist or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Does it mean like, okay, like for instance, right? I'm not trying to be extremist and stuff like that, but I'm just trying to get the real gist of it. Okay, I understand the part of intimacy, like you make the ghusl after and stuff like that. I mean, wudu, right? Do you okay? So do you have to make wudu? I mean, ghusl, like if you have intimacy with your wife and stuff like that. Should you do that too?
You have to wash. The ghusl means to wash up, like you just bath.
Right.
Take a bath.
Okay.
Yeah, you cleanse.
Oh, okay. So you take a bath.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you also say the part of what I'm saying, like when you touch a woman, right? Some brothers might think that like okay, like they might take it on the literal sense, because you explain literal and everything like that. So when it says touch the woman, right? Does it also mean that okay, if you kiss your wife, right? You offered wudu, right? And you just kissed your wife. Can you go and pray from just kissing your wife, or you just give a kiss, or she comes to kiss you? Can you? Because some people will say that how your wudu lasts, it could last all day long, right? Unless you use the bathroom, have intimacy, and a couple other things and stuff like that. So does it also, does the wudu break like okay, like if you just touch your wife or you give a kiss?
First of all, the wudu doesn't last all day long. God only asks
Okay,
you, He
okay,
only asks you to wash up when you're going for the salat. So if the salat is 3 times a
okay.
day, why will you just wash up once and then you wait the whole day? You understand? It doesn't
Oh,
make sense.
okay.
And then secondly, when you say your wife kiss you, did she kiss you on the lips?
Yeah,
Where did she kiss you? Is it a sexual kiss? Or is it a peg? If she's giving you a peg,
yeah, just a peck, just a peck, like a kiss on the cheek or a kiss on the lips,
that
right?
is
I
not
don't want to be
considered. Let me break this down. If you go to
yes,
Quran
brother.
chapter if you go to Quran chapter 19 and you go to
Yes, brother.
verse 19 to verse 20, I have it on the screen, so you don't need to open it on your side. Quran
Okay.
chapter 19 verse 19 to verse 20. When the angel was sent to Maryam, this is what he told Maryam. Listen, he said, I am only a messenger of your Lord to grant you a pure boy. She said, how can I have a boy while no man has touched me and I have not been a whore? Now, Remember, Quran is talking to intelligent people. When you are talking to an intelligent person, you don't need to be very, very explicit with your words. You understand? And then the Quran is a book of guidance. It's not here to be so profane and vulgar and so on. So what Quran does is it wants us to scrutinize the verses and examine the verses. If a woman has to have a child, do I need to just touch her by my hand, or do I need to just kiss her to have a child? It's not possible. When I give her a peck, or if I touch her by the hand, she doesn't have a child. She doesn't get pregnant from that. So here it is talking about the literal sense as to how copulating with a woman. You understand? In the actual sense, it's about copulating with a woman. So because when you copulate with a woman, what happens is you become impure. Impure in the sense of you actually, well, after copulation, the man either stinks or the woman stinks, or there's a lot of pollution on your body or so on. That is where it's necessary for you to find water and wash up. You understand? Every logical person knows that when I do something and I'm dirty, my body is impure, or I become dirty, the logical sense to take the impurity out is to purify yourself by cleansing yourself. That is to find water and wash up. So the context of Quran chapter 5 verse 6 is literally telling us in the sense of understanding that touching the woman is in the sense of copulating with a woman. It is not talking about just touching the woman just like this and then. No, not in that sense.
Okay. I sent you also on WhatsApp. I sent you a video, right, of something that Ayub Karim said in one of his videos, right? I don't know if you could take a look, because I've been waiting for you to that if you could just watch the video just real quick. There was a question that I wanted to ask you in the video, right, where he was discussing about Salat, right? So I wanted to know, if you know anything about this, and if you could you could a little bit like expand on it. I didn't really understand what he said, and I can't get in contact with him. So
if I have to tackle
yes.
if I have to tackle that on this video, then it might be on my next lecture.
No, I don't want you to tackle it on the video. You know what I'm saying? I just want you to like when you finish, you have a free time.
Yeah, I can watch it. I can watch it after this. Then maybe on my next live section, I'll discuss it. Yeah,
okay, so,
I can do that.
So I already sent you the video and stuff like that. I think I might send it back to you. This is Abdul.
No. If you have already sent it, I remember the name. Don't worry, I'll check it out.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'll look it up. I'll check it, and then I'll get back to you.
And one more question, right? Okay. One more question. What like, is there something special that you should say when you wake up in the morning as soon as you get up? Right? Is there something you should say? Can I say like alhamdulillah, or something, or just I could get up and act normal and just go make my wudu and then go and pray?
Yeah, in Quran chapter 50 verse 39, it's telling you that you should be patient over what they say and glorify with praise of your Lord before the rising of the sun. So the rising of the sun is usually early morning. In the morning time, you can praise God by saying alhamdulillah, or praise be, or subhanallah. It's just to show appreciation to God that it's daybreak. So this is not the act of salat. It's different from salat. This is just tasbih. Tasbih is just glorifying God or praising God for getting you to the next day. So now when you wake up from daybreak, you just say alhamdulillah or praise or subhanallah.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much. Because I didn't want to do something or say something that I didn't understand, because you just explained that. So I just didn't want to be that person that did what you just explained. Like, you shouldn't do things where you don't understand or you don't know about. So I just asked you that question, right?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, brother. So I'll save the link. I've just saved the link. I copied the link from this thing you sent me. I'll go through it, and inshallah it could be part of my next lecture, God willing. Thank you for your time.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Okay,
thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, brother Sheikh.
Okay, so that is brother Abdul Wahab from Guyana. We can take the next The next caller, there's a brother who tried calling me. Let me call the brother back. Yeah, salam.
Hello?
Yes, hello, brother. Your name and where you're calling from?
Hey, walaikum salam. My name is Omar Sattar. I'm calling from Toronto, Canada.
Nice, nice to meet you, brother Omar. How may I help you?
Good, good. I messaged you a few times on Facebook and stuff, and I actually only recently, earlier in the year, at the beginning of Ramadan this year, started reading the Quran without preconceived notions and without any biases, trying to understand it with a clean slate. Right. And I started to think a bit about the topic or subject of Jummah. And I started to wonder, we have the whole book with 114 chapters and a lot of verses. And to my knowledge so far, I haven't gained a significant amount of knowledge, but to my knowledge so far, there's only 3 verses that deal with this Jummah topic, right? Chapter 62, section 2. And I think what I get from it is that not so much what the traditional Muslims have put together, what we do on Friday nowadays, because I don't see none of that in the Quran, to be honest. But what I seem to understand is that there was some day of congregation going on that's mentioned there. But the lesson that was being taken away just from the 3 verses of chapter 62, section 2, is that whatever they were doing in the congregation when the time for prayer arrived, and the prophet was there standing to pray, they left the prophet and they returned back to their business and their sport or whatever they were doing at the time. So I was wondering, is that kind of in line with the Jummah topic? The way how the Jummah is presented from a Quran point of view?
Okay. First of all, Quran chapter 62, verse 9 up to verse 11 is talking about the regular salat, the one God has stipulated for us. He has actually ordained for us.
Yeah, that's what I also understand from it. Not a new salat or not a change of the salat or anything.
No, it is not a different salat. It is not actually in the Quran. You will never find the name of a salat called Salat al-Jum'ah. There is no salat called Salat al-Jum'ah in the Quran.
Right.
People usually don't understand this. So let me give some clarity here. When you go to Quran chapter 62 verse 9,
yeah,
and I put it on the screen. Let me put it on the screen. This is Quran chapter 62 verse 9 on the screen, right? So it says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu iza nudiya lis-salat min yawmil jum'at. Right? It says min yawmil jum'ah. It doesn't say min salatil jum'ah. No, it doesn't say salat al-jum'ah. It says min yawmil jum'ah. Then it says fas'aw ila zikrullah, because salat is necessary for the remembrance of God.
Right.
Fas'aw ila zikrullah. Then it says wazarul bay'ah. So bay'ah means the sale, because there's a business going on. So leave the sale and go for the remembrance of God. Then God says zalikum khayrun lakum in kuntum ta'alamun. That is better for you if you should know, right? So in this verse, this is where the misconception arises, because the sectarians take this verse and then they interpolate their understanding from external source, from an external source, to say that this is Salat al-Jum'ah. It doesn't say Salat al-Jum'ah. What they do is they misconstrue the verses mentioned here, chapter 62 verse 9 up to 8. They misconstrue it and put the concept of Salat al-Jum'ah. What God is saying is, oh, you who have believed, when called to the Salat from the day of congregation. So the day of congregation, what is going on? It is the sale going on. People are selling stuff.
What I was wondering,
Yes,
I feel like the context is given in 11 when it says they left the prophet and they went back to the merchandise and the sport.
Exactly, because that is what that day is meant for. It's the day of sale. You understand?
Right.
But the people were so addicted to the sale and entertainment so much that they couldn't even pay attention to the remembrance of God. Whilst the remembrance of God, the time is due, because God has stipulated the time for us to establish Salat. It is before sunrise, before sunset, that is a morning and evening salat, Fajr, Isha, and then we have the middle of the night. So now the evening salat is probably the one people will call you to join to establish the salat, because that is the time the day is coming to an end, right? So this evening salat, what the people do is, instead of leaving their business and entertainment, they are still, attached to it. So they leave the prophet standing. When you read the context, they leave him standing whilst he is there to give them the zikrullah, right? The remembrance of God, because that is what salat is about. That is why God told Moses in Quran chapter 20 verse 14, he says, innani anallah la ilaha illa ana fa'abuduni wa aqimi salat li zikri. So you establish the salat for the remembrance of God. That is what salat is about. So there is no instance in this verse which gives the people the notion that it says salat al-jum'ah. Salat al-jum'ah only comes from the hadith book. It doesn't come from the Quran.
I agree. Yes.
Do you get my point? So this is the misconception. Yeah.
And then when you think about it, out of the whole Quran, there's only 3 verses on this whole Jummah thing. You know what I mean? And nothing in these 3 verses say to establish anything of what the traditional Muslim is doing right now. So that's why I kind of pondered on it, and I saw a few other brothers' perspectives, and I kind of came to this perspective too. That the message is really simple. That's in between here. That is as you said, the remembrance of Allah, and that's why it tells you that it's better for you if you know. If you
let me clarify this point. Some people are asking why is it Juma and not a Monday? Now, the word Jum'ah, look at the title of the chapter. The word Jum'ah means congregation. Al-Jum'ah means the congregation. It doesn't say Friday. Nowhere in the Quran does it say the word Friday. Please, ladies and gentlemen, don't be confused by the sectarians telling you that is Friday. That the word Friday doesn't exist in the Quran.
Oh, okay. Because some translations, I see them put Friday in some translations.
These are the translators from the Hadithiyuns. The Hadith followers are the ones interpolating that understanding, because they use the Hadith books to try to interpolate this concept in the Quran. So this is what the first scholar was saying, that people should pay close attention to the brackets these people are using when they put into brackets to confuse the narrative in the Quran.
Yes. And even the Arabic, because like I said, I just started earlier in the year in the Ramadan earlier this year, so I haven't acquired a lot. But one thing I started to do, which I noticed in your videos that other Muslims should do, is we owe it to ourselves. Like for me, my background is Canadian. I don't know Arabic at all, but since I started watching your videos and reading for myself, I started paying attention to the Arabic words. And stuff like that. For example, the topic on Qibla. When I saw your video and I looked at the text and I saw some translations not translating it, and I saw the example in chapter 10, it said for Moses, I said, hang on, something's not right here with the traditional translation of what's going on there. So
yes. Also, let me not to cut you short. Let me place this emphasis on this. Be careful with translations which isolate words in the Quran and they don't translate it. For instance, if God says Salah, they don't translate Salah. If he says Zakat, they don't translate Zakat. If he say Hajj, they don't translate Hajj. If he say Hadith, they don't translate Hadith. They just leave it as it is. Be careful with such translations. Because what they do is they entrap you with such words. They leave it. Like, for instance, if God says Al-Islam, then they leave it. They don't translate Islam. They leave it as Islam. There is no religion called Islam. If we are speaking English, the word is submission.
Right.
So people have, however, romanized the word from Arabic to just let it seem like, oh, there's a religion called Islam. Islam is an Arabic word. It's not an English word. Do you understand? So we have to translate the word. The deen with God is submission. So when you say Islam, it's an Arabic word. Just like when you say Muslim, it's an Arabic word. It's not an English word. So a Muslim is a submitter. So this is when you find these kind of Quranic translations and they isolate words and leave them as it is. What they do is then they use external sources to confuse the narrative by interpolating new meanings that will confuse you.
They
Uh-huh.
just want to they want to confirm the preconceived narrative from
Yes, yes. So then you see Muslims, English-speaking people tell you, let's go to the Juma. Let's go to what Juma? Juma is an Arabic word. What do you mean, let's go to the Juma? Let's go to what Juma?
Yes.
Juma means congregation.
Yeah.
So this is the confusion.
Yeah.
So those words, when you are checking in the Quran and they don't translate the subject matter, beware of such a Quran. Whenever you see any Quran and the subject matter has not been translated, cast it out, throw it away. Don't use such a Quran. Yeah. So that is just my advice there. Do you have any other question before we go?
No, that was it. But I'd like to thank you very much for the work you do and the effort you put in. I'm sure it benefit a lot of people, benefit me. So that was my one question for now, and it was very nice speaking with you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Actually, I will be ending the program for now. Thank you for your time. Peace to you.
No problem.
Yeah. My time is up, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to TikTok. However, after this, I have to actually cook. It's 2:00 in the morning. I have to stay here for less than 2 hours, and I have to cook at least 1.5 hours before I go to sleep. Wow. Anyways, somebody says, explain the Qibla verse. I would love to hear the brothers understanding the Qibla verse. I have videos on it. I did a video on Jig Brancatella. I gave the answers, and I have a video. I gave a response to Prince Mushrik, that young boy, Prince Mushrik. If you watch that rebuttal, go to my YouTube section video and go to my playlist and look for rebuttals. Rebuttals, you find my response to Prince Mushrik. I explained that concept there. You find the Qibla. So the word Qibla, again, is an Arabic word. It's not an English word. So this is what the translations out there, they do to you. They leave these words. Then they will say Qibla. They leave these words to confuse you, ladies and gentlemen. Please pay attention. Please pay attention. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, why I'm busy. Yes. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this is the correctional officer, babashuaib. This is the topic for today. I'm moving to TikTok. I'm getting exhausted. I might not stay there for long, but kindly join me if you have anything else to ask. Yes, I'm willing to answer. Salim Mohammed says, Salam alaikum. Are you familiar with Nunetics by instructor Bilal, friend of? I've watched a couple of videos from Bilal, Benjamin Bilal. It seems to be interesting, some of the things he said. Well, I can't brush off whatever he's saying, but in a real world, if you bring the logic he's presenting, if you bring it in the real world, you can only test that kind of knowledge with questions. You understand? For a logical assessment of somebody's religion or somebody's knowledge, instead of telling the person he's right or he's wrong, just ask them a series of questions. Which challenges their point of view, or you understand what they know. In order to cause some lapses in that logic that they have, you have to look for where there's a weakness in the logic they are presenting. Punch a hole there so that you see how they come to their own realizations independently. So with that, if the person cannot answer critical questions, then you know there's contradiction in whatever they're presenting. So as for me to say right now that his concept of Nunetics, because remember, Nunetics, he's the one who coined that word and he created the concept. So he coined it up and he created that concept. Well, knowledge is diverse. God grants people different types of knowledge, right? For now, I can't just tell you he's wrong, but yes, you have to examine what people say, and then you make sure they can prove whatever they say with logic and reasoning. That's all I can say. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is babashuaib, the correctional officer. Thank you very much, Nawizo. Thank you very much, Jacob says, I'm waiting for you to come home so that I can still get my copy. Don't worry, God willing. Somebody says, Baba, the chaste women you can propose her. The chaste, you mean the chaste women? Propose and get married without getting permission from a parent. Yes, the chaste, matured woman. Yes, a woman who is more independent, chaste woman, independent woman. Yes, you can marry her without the permission of a parent. You just need to present her fees to her. The agreement can be between you and present the fees, right? Yeah, thank you very much, Pro Work Studios. I appreciate the support. Thank you, Abu Thomas. Baba said, thank you very much. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Salam to S. Faraj, Abdul Rahim. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to TikTok. Kindly join me before I lose my energy. Right? Kindly join me there. Then we continue. Right? Yes. So I appreciate your support. If you want to have fun, come. That maybe the mushriks are waiting for me on TikTok. So if you want to have fun, join me on TikTok to watch or enjoy the program. I don't want it to be too long. I might trim this greetings part so that you get to enjoy the program. So this is where correctional officer bring the topic to an end. Till we meet again next week, God willing. This is where I say peace out. Peace.